The Tenet Glaxion and the Kubas just were released, and they didn't come alone, they also have their special augments that we don't have access to just yet. But fear not, we're gonna simulate the performance in the case of the Glaxion. Welcome back. As always, my name is Leyzar, and today we're going to be diving deeper into the Tenet Glaxion, see if it's worth building or not. As per the usual, we'll have an introductory level setup and an endgame setup. I'm going to be keeping my new player friendly tone, simply because I want anybody watching to understand how the weapon functions and how it should be built. So in case you're a vet and you already know most of this stuff, please bear with me. And with that out of the way, let's jump into the Tenet Glaxion. Let's begin by checking out how the weapon handles without any mods equipped, and for that, just a couple of regular free shots. A bit of a disclosure though, it's been a long night of testing and farming, so if I'm a bit more trippy than usual, then that's why. There are a couple of functionality changes between the regular version of the Glaxion and the Tenet Glaxion. Now when I say regular, I'm gonna be referring to the Glaxion Vandal, which was the most powerful Glaxion up until this one. First of all, let's talk about the range. The normal Glaxion had a 28 meter range, plus another 2 meters as an area of effect sphere that would hit all the targets within its range. We lose the sphere in the case of the Tenet version, however, we gain chaining to 3 additional enemies, totaling 4 enemies hit. However, as the damage jumps, you're going to be losing roughly 50% of the damage. So essentially it kind of works like other chaining beam weapons. Not a big deal, it's just something that you need to know regarding its functionality. It's still a beam weapon, so per ammo you're still going to be getting 2 damage ticks on your targets. The range on it by default is going to be that juicy 30 meters without the extra slot being used. We're talking about Sinister Reach and another 12 meters, pushing you to 42 meters. It doesn't have the augment with punch through, it does have an augment with critical damage, but we're going to be talking about that one just a tad later. The magazine saw a nerf from 100 down to 90, and the reload speed also saw a nerf from 1.8 seconds on the Vandal to 2 seconds on the Tenet version. It's all good news from down here. These were all the nerfs. Outside of that, we got more critical chance, 20% instead of 14%, 2.2x critical multiplier instead of 2x, 40% status chance instead of 38, and more base damage as well, 34 instead of 29. Keep in mind that over all of this damage, you're going to be getting your progenitor bonus. In this case, I went for a radiation progenitor. We got a 50% roll. The maximum roll, as you know, will be 60. Regarding which progenitor to use, especially considering that nowadays we are fighting the Murmur, go for radiation. That will free up a mod slot on your weapon. If not, cold is a good idea, so you can make corrosive and cold. If not, you can always go for magnetic. My recommendation number 1 for the current content is gonna be a radiation progenitor such as Mirage Prime. This being a Tenet weapon, that's why I got mod capacity 80 out of 80. You get 2 additional mod capacity per forma, up to 5 forma. You jump into actions, you plug in the Organ Catalyst, you double that mod capacity. You also double that extra capacity, that's why you get to 80. You do not need 5 forma. For the weapon build, I'm going to be recommending 2 to 3 is going to be more than plenty. However, you do need to go to 5 forma if you want to draw all the mastery points that this weapon can offer. This would be a new player friendly introductory level build. While the Tenet Glaxion and Nemesis weapons in general have a mastery lockout of 16, you can get it earlier, you can use it earlier. And this would be a jumping off point. Damage Serration, multi-shot split chamber, critical chance, critical damage reduce, critical delay, as well as vital sense. Hunter munitions needs to be here. You got a critical chance of 60%, so you're going to be getting plenty slashes out of this one. And of course the vital elemental combo, because where there is slash, there must be vital. And you might also need a faction modifier as well, but for the time being, stick to vital with the 260-60 mods, Malignant Force, and Rhyme rounds. This one you farm from spy missions, this one from Corrupted War in the Void. On the build, you will notice 2 corrupted mods. Vial Acceleration for the fire rate, this is an option mod. If you don't have this one, another option is to go for Vigilante Armaments with 60% multi-shot plus the set bonus. That way you can get yourself orange crits on your targets. As for critical delay, this is the second corrupted mod, and it's more important in our case. 200% critical chance, minus 20% fire rate. If you dislike the kill and fire rate, it doesn't really matter because again we have vial acceleration, but you can go for the normal version, point strike instead. The damage deficit from vial acceleration simply means 15% from serration, so you shouldn't bother with it all that much. Now here's what I'm thinking. No Warframe buffs, no anything. I'm gonna show you what the weapon can do versus the standard Grenier battle group. level 100 with and without steel path modifiers, so you can see what a cheapo introductory level build can actually do for you. There we go, bombards, butchers, everything essentially. First without steel path, and then we'll do it with steel path. Again, this is just a weapon on its own 2 feet. Shred City. If I stop, you can see the procs on the target. 10 rad, 10 slashes, 10 vitals. You don't need to go for 60 mods. You can switch out for 90 mods. Because at the end of the day, there's no benefit in going overboard with vital or going overboard with radiation. What you're interested in is getting more slash procs and getting your critical chance up. So, an improvement to the build. What do we know? We can ditch the 60 mods. Boom, boom. And we can just make vital with the 90 mods, and we'll check exactly what kind of results we're going to be getting with this one. And we can also try to increase that critical chance. More critical chance in this case is not exactly my favorite to recommend, but you can go for Argon Scope instead of Bile Acceleration. But in this case, trust me, because of that 90 magazine capacity and the 2-second reload, keep that Bile Acceleration on. It simply makes for a more enjoying gameplay experience. I want a fatter target so you can see the procs before they die. This is a fatter target. Since these targets die way too easily and I can't really show you the procs properly, so you can see that you're still getting plenty of vital procs even with the 90 mods. We're just gonna go for these steel path modifiers. Again, this is still the cheap old build. Steel path on level 100 versus the Grenier. Still the introductory level build, by the way. 1/10 vital on your target. Look at that, like 10 vital right there. You're just not getting a whole lot of slash because it is that only 60% critical chance. But look at that, 4 slashes, 10 vitals, more than plenty to kill up a corrupted, a heavy goon, which have a whole lot more HP. Not as much as the corrupted kind, but still. This is the performance for a introductory level build versus steel path level 100 enemies. I don't think an MR, a low MR player should see something like this, but if you do, rest assured that the Glaxion bundle can perform well even with a cheapo setup. And that will be it for the new player portion of the guide. What follows next is to max out the weapon, and you will notice there's one mod missing. I'll explain exactly why that is just a tad later. Galvanized Chamber, Galvanized Aptitude. Galvanized Aptitude's damage bonus, unfortunately for us, doesn't seem to be multiplicative. It's the standard additive. Hunter munitions, of course, critical delay. Infected clip will be making corrosive on the weapon with my Riven, which is multi-shot electricity critical damage. If you don't have a Riven, you can simply swap it out for an electricity mod, and not only. The idea here is to make cold, radiation, and corrosive. Radiation and corrosive perfect against the Murmur, our current endgame content, I want to say. Obviously, if you know you're going to be doing something else, you can cater the weapon to your own specifications. That cold, which is absolutely fantastic because it adds more critical damage for us, and it's also going to be getting buffed in the near future, if these to be believed, and I don't see why we wouldn't. And it also allows us to use primary frostbite. Now, this one on cold status effect will give us critical damage and multi-shot. But the problem with this one is critical damage actually worth it on the Tenet Glaxion? At the end of the day, you know what? You only got a 60% critical chance, and you didn't get that many slashes with the normal build, which also had 60%. This being the endgame setup, we're going to be relying on an Arcane to get extra crit. Obviously, it's going to be Arcane Avenger, fire rate from Arcane Acceleration. We're not going to be using Corrosive Projection on our targets, however. Now, why is the last slot open? We just got a brand new augment for the Tenet Glaxion. Now, got is a bit exaggerated in the sense that we don't have it just yet. You're gonna have to farm it. If memory serves, it's at level 25, so it's gonna be a while. This one is called Photon Overcharge. It gives you 90% critical damage and on kill or assist. Slain enemies have a 2% chance to drop an energy orb per cold status affecting them. So essentially a bit of critical damage, not as much as Vital Sense, which is 120, and you can substitute it for something like Bladed Rounds, which is another 120, but you get that energy regeneration as well. It's up to you if you want to use this one. In terms of the power it adds to the actual weapon itself, for utility, sure, if you prefer to play that way, yet another source of, yet another energy generator, I guess. Other options include faction mods. Especially considering that most of your damage, or at least a good portion of your damage, is going to be coming from slash. That's why Hunter Munitions is there. You need to have the faction modifier, which double dips. If you still don't know exactly how that whole double dipping works, link in the cards right now for a full and detailed guide on Hunter Munitions. It touches on all the modifiers that you need to know about, including the faction modifiers. So this would be a option you can go for, and this is how I'm going to be showcasing the build first. Avenger, acceleration, faction modifier, and... oh, I forgot something. What do I don't have, gang, on the build? Vital, obviously. There's slash, but there's no vital. For that, we're going to be using your standard primer, the best primer in the game. We're going to be talking about the Didiga. If you don't have a jumping off point for the Didiga as a introductory level build, you can use something like this. For standard priming, you can use something like this. We're going to be getting some heat, some vital, yummy on our targets. And of course, you can get more procs and etc. Level 205, we're not gonna be spawning these guys because they're too easy to kill. Let me... Corrupted Heavy Goons. At least these guys have a whole lot more HP. They should hold up a bit more nicely. We're gonna spawn 20 of them, or fine, 19 of them on pause the targets and see exactly how this weapon performs. Can you guys like hit me and not anybody else? Guys, over here. No? There we go. And that was unstacked, just saying. It absolutely shreks targets without any problem whatsoever. Now I can stop firing for a second so you can see the procs and everything if you care about such things. But the weapon essentially melts everything that stands before it without any issue whatsoever. Now granted, it's gonna be looking a little bit different if you're gonna go into the thousands, but still, this is absolutely insanity. Look at this. For a non-incarnate weapon, for your... It's not exactly an average Joe weapon, because it's still a Tenet weapon, yes? But have no fear, my friends. The Tenet Glax does melt your targets. In a way, if you want to make that comparison, you could say it's... Wow, that's just destruction. You could say it's a better Amprax. We wanted a Tenet Amprax, we didn't get it, but we got this, and this is absolutely glorious. Now, the idea here is that we're gonna be fighting the Murmur, so you've seen enough carnage against the Corrupted Heavy Goons. Let's kill a couple of Murmurs as well. Out with the faction modifier, and now you have a choice. I'm gonna simulate the Augment that we got, just, well, a bit more stronger than that, but another option, especially if you went for a magnetic progenitor, let's say, or you went for whatever else, and you still want radiation on your weapon with a single mod, Radiated Reload is here to serve you. 60% radiation and 40% reload speed, bringing down the reload from 2 seconds to 1.4. That is an option. I'm gonna simulate that mod though with critical damage with bladed rounds, but it's 120 is too much. You know what? I'm gonna take another bladed rounds and just mod it up. You guys wanna see 100 or you wanna see 80? The Augment gives you 90. Let's go to 100. It's gonna be ever so slightly better, but nothing major. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, sure. It just annihilated the easy targets. Look at this. Beautiful, fantastic. It still melts like nobody's business. Even the whatchamacallit. Hold on. Usually this is the more tougher target. What's it called? The Hollowed Vein, or it used to be. Melted, no problem whatsoever. I'm gonna show you everything from the start, and I'm guessing you're not surprised that the weapon absolutely melts everything that stands before it without much issue. I mean, look at this. It's beautiful, it's glorious, it's fantastic, and you will have no problem in dealing with Steel Path Murmur, especially if you went for the Radiation Progenitor. Now, I know what you might think. Hold on, dude, there's a Riven there. It's a Dispo 1. Okay, so the values on the Riven aren't that big. What's more important on that Riven, the fact that it saves the slot because it has electricity. Plan out your build when you're thinking about your Progenitor. Do I have the necessary mod space for everything that I need to go on it? For example, we had somebody that went for Magnetic and was like, oh damn, I gotta use the Radiation mod, and then I don't have space for 4-4. So again, plan it out a little bit. If you're worried about if the weapon is worth building, it's a nonsense question. Of course, it is definitely worth building. One thing though, if you expect incarnate level of performance, it's not quite there because, you know, it's not an incarnate weapon, but goddamn, it would definitely make a top 10 of non-incarnate weapons, if that makes any sense. Now, of course, it does look good with normal level mobs and trash, let's call them, but what can it do versus an Acolyte? That's it. To sum things up, I think I gave it away a bit earlier. The Tenet Glaxion is an absolutely amazing weapon. But you need to temper your expectations in the sense that this is a Tenet weapon, not an Incarnate weapon. If you want another turret, then this ain't it. Don't play the turret. This is one of the most powerful non-Incarnate weapons in the game, and it can do the 99.8% of content that most players do. Go, build it, and enjoy it. As for the Augment, well, back in the day, hashtag back in the day, one of the few sources of energy was Energy Siphon. You guys remember when you had to run Energy Siphon, otherwise you were kind of SOL. You also had a Void School that would AoE give you back some energy. Those days are gone. We got plenty of ways of getting our energy back. I don't think we needed it on an Augment for this absolutely... oh, wait. Is that the bubble guy? That's the bubble guy. I can't believe I didn't kill myself. I don't think that putting it on the Tenet Glaxion Augment was necessarily the smartest choice that I ever seen from the... Don't get me wrong, you still get that 90% critical damage. And 90% critical damage is always worth it when your critical chance are guaranteed, which they are with Arcane Avenger. But outside of that, I gotta be honest with you, the Sobek Augment looks a bit more delicious. As always, my name is Leyzar. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, favorite, share, and subscribe only if you enjoy the content. If you got any feedback for me, let me know in the comment section down below. You can also catch me on Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, all the usual places. And if you love the content and you want to support what we're doing here, consider pledging via Patreon. There's gonna be a link in the upper right portion of the screen right about now. Until next time, my friends. Bye-bye.